This student scored 348 out of 360. That's the highest score in the history of the exam. Not just that year, not just that decade, in all time. And he didn't just top one of India's hardest entrance exams. He topped both of them. And that was in the same year, and he ranked number one out of millions of students. His name is Mridul Agarwal. And when you hear a name like that, I know what you're going to do. Your brain's going to switch off and think, okay, he's just a genius. Nothing to do with me. I can't do that. But here's the thing. When you read what he actually did, there's no magic behind it. There's no trick. But there are 4 habits. And 2 of them are things that barely any A-level students are probably doing right now, and including me when I was writing A-levels. So chances are you're approaching the end of exam season right now. Maybe you've got a few more exams left. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the 4 things that made this guy number one, and I'm going to try to translate that in an A-level context. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to flag the 2 that matter the most. One of them is capping you right now without you even realizing it. And the other technique, which is actually very simple, but had I known of it and just implemented it properly, I probably would have done much better. Let's start with the first one of those. When people read about Mridul, what does stand out is that they see that he did 6 to 8 hours on top of his existing schoolwork of self-study. And that's where a lot of people probably go wrong, right? They see that and they think, okay, I just need to grind harder and that's it. But define grinding harder. But here's the truth. And we all know this implicitly, but in this day and age, it's very easy, right, to forget it. We are always distracted, okay? At the moment, you've probably got notifications on your phone. You've probably got, Snapchat, Instagram, all these notifications coming at you. And the context of that is when you're studying, right? Grind harder. You can do 6 to 8 hours of work, but it's not really about the length as much, even though the length matters. It's more about the focus and the intensity of it, okay? Because think about it, and again, this isn't a novel concept, but it's just so true, right? If you are unable to just cut out distractions, okay, and then you're just distracted by everything when you're working, you can't really apply that deep focus that really moves the needle. Now look, 6 to 8 hours on top of your existing classwork is a bit extreme, but let's be honest, Mridul's case, extreme work created an extreme result, right? He came number one out of millions. I'm not saying obviously that the way to go forward here is just to study 6 to 8 hours on top of classwork, unless you're looking for an extreme result like that. Obviously, sacrifices can be needed if you want that. But just to do well and move the needle for yourself, the key principle is basically that these long hours of study are not some kind of superhuman feat that you're incapable of doing. You're very capable of doing that, but what it comes down to is just recognizing the distractions around you. And obviously, if you need, you can chunk it up. Obviously, you don't have to do 6 hours straight. But the key thing just comes down to dedicated focus. And look, the reason why I speak about this quite passionately is because I used to suck at this a lot. The whole thing with Pomodoro technique and all that kind of thing, it never really worked for me because I'd be there just studying for 30 minutes, okay? Obviously, you do 25, 30 minutes, timer goes off, whatever. But in this day and age, you have so many distractions around you that once that 30 minutes is done, I just kind of go on YouTube or social media and scroll, right? And then my time would just be drained and my energy would just be drained. So the next study session after that just would be completely obliterated, right? I couldn't really get to the point where I was doing consistent studying in deep blocks. But what has changed in the past couple of years is that I've made an active decision to really, really manage social media and reframe it as like a time sucking tool. Because once, like for me at least personally, once I started doing that, I've been able to focus much, much better. Like I wake up and work like 4 hours first thing, and I can do that straight. Obviously, if I need to go to the toilet, that's different. But it's like I don't have to go and like check social media and that sort of thing. So the A-level translation here, okay, is let's just be honest with ourselves. Like there's a lot of like airy-fairy stuff that goes around where it's like, oh, you can just, social media and moderation, etc. And like to an extent that's true, obviously, but you need to like really like have an audit and think to yourself, okay, how much time am I actually spending getting distracted in stuff that doesn't actually serve me, right? And you need to think, okay, maybe the solution is just to delete it from my phone. Keep the account, just have it accessible from your computer, or have dedicated periods where like it's just completely off your phone, right? Because trust me, again, we can all like pretend that, oh, I can manage. Like I've got like really good willpower. Maybe you do, but a lot of people don't, right? Just by virtue of, the patterns of like the median person in the West, at least. Like everyone's distracted. Everyone's kind of like, most people are overweight. Like willpower isn't that available, okay, as a population. So chances are maybe you don't have that willpower. So that's what I'm saying. Like oftentimes it's better just to delete it off your phone. So whatever you end up doing when it comes to those distractions, whether it's social media or whatever, what you need to do is you need to take an audit of them and work out how exactly they're impacting you, okay, and make a plan to either like minimize it or eliminate it completely. So how this translates to an A-level context is that you need depth, right? You need to be able to go for long periods of time where you are able just to focus. Okay, that doesn't necessarily mean it has to be hours. It could be 30 minutes. It could be Pomodoro, but just make sure that is like a honed in focus. Now, remember the technique I mentioned that I wish I was doing when I was doing A-levels? This is it. Every time he did a past paper or some kind of mock exam, whenever he got a question wrong, he'd actively log it in a notebook, which was basically a consolidation of all of his mistakes. Okay, so this notebook became like a textbook of mistakes. Now, this sounds extremely simple, but oftentimes the best things actually are extremely simple, right? It just takes like discipline to do it. And again, it's something I wish I did, because I think it would have been a lot, like I was doing a version of it, but having a consolidated version of it would have been like, I think, a lot more effective. And what I found interesting as well is, and this is a really good mindset shift, he didn't just refer to these as, oh no, I made a mistake and this is so bad. He really took the emotion out of it and he referred to it as debugging, which I think is a great term, because when you think about a problem as just a bug and something to be solved, right? You take the emotion out of it. It's all very technical, and it allows you to be rational under pressure and make refinements that are going to ultimately get you a better result. Whereas if you're emotional and you see the mistake as some kind of judgment as you as a person, which, sometimes it can be easy to do that under pressure, right? Like you feel like, oh, I'm so dumb, like why did I do this? I'm never going to get this. Instead of just seeing it as a bug and something to be refined, that's a really helpful mindset shift. So the way you can adapt this for A-levels is when you're doing your past papers, when you make the mistakes, right, do the feedback loop of obviously going forward and, going into detail about that specific topic and working on that specific topic, but keep a notebook of the mistakes you're making, right? And what that's going to do for you is by logging the mistake, right, like the specific mistake. So for instance, I don't know how to find a coefficient in a binomial expansion, for instance, or whatever. Like really jot down the mistake itself, not the answer, but the mistake. And what that means is you've got a consolidated book now of mistakes that you make regularly, which means that you can just look through that book and have a really, really laser focused revision system for that. Now, deep focus, having a mistake book, and debugging are very helpful, but there is one thing that can really bottleneck those processes that you need to be aware of. One of the key things that Myrdal spoke about in his interviews was concept clarity. Okay, and what this does is this actually links to the feedback loop process that I've described in another video, where you need a feedback loop, right? That's true, but you also need that feedback loop to be fast, right? So what he did is whenever he didn't understand a topic, he really made sure that with his instructors, teachers, or whatever, he really went in depth with them, to really try to understand the underlying topic. Okay, and what that does is it builds a solid foundation to do volume, right? To do past papers. So again, a mistake a lot of people make is they just do past papers without understanding the underlying topic itself, right? And what you need is a bit of both. You need to understand the underlying topic because that gives you adaptability, right? For basically the type of questions at the end that the examiners might throw at you that, if you didn't understand the topic well enough, you wouldn't be able to get. And this is something that I used to mess up a lot in AS, right? That I had to fix for A-level. In AS, I finished the paper, okay? And because I had so many other subjects, I would leave the marking for a certain period of time, okay? I wouldn't mark it immediately. Okay, so what that built was a slow feedback loop cycle where I was refining my mistakes, but I wasn't refining them quickly enough, right? And under exam pressure, where the exam is on a deadline, right? That's dangerous. Okay, so make sure that when you do your papers and you're stuck with them, try get instant help with it, right? Or at least get that help as quickly as possible to help really accelerate that feedback loop. So what is the secret of this Indian genius? Well, there's really no secret, at least from what I read, unless he's on some kind of performance enhancing drugs. That's a different story. But from what it seems, he just out-executed, right? On a system that everyone really knows implicitly, right? Everyone kind of knows this stuff. But ultimately, it comes down to eliminating distractions. Okay, and don't lie to yourself. Don't tell yourself that you are when you're really not. Okay, really make sure you're not lying to yourself. The second thing is obviously keeping that workbook, okay, of all your mistakes. Okay, really jot those down. And the third thing there was seeing it as a debugging mindset instead of a emotional problem that you need to solve. See it really as a technical issue that you're just refining when you get a question wrong. And the fourth thing was really just the nitrous oxide of this whole thing, just speeding up the feedback loop cycle. Now the issue is, that takes a lot of time. Well, if you want to cut that time out so you got more time for studying, make sure to click the link below and join the community completely for free. Over there you can find some more resources here where we break down exactly what this blueprint looks like, and also some tools that are dedicated to help you, really accelerate the studying process.